أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakat. Our host for today's episode is Brother Ali-Asad Ismail.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The love for the Ahl-ul Bayt. Interestingly, our karate begins the discussion by mentioning the famous ayah of Mawadda from Surah Shura. It says, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. Allah here is telling the Holy Prophet that, O Prophet, say, I don't ask from you any wage or any reward except the love of my family. What's interesting here is that Allah is directly commanding the Prophet to say, and we know that the Prophet anyways doesn't say anything from his own self, but in this kind of an ayah when Allah starts by saying Qul, meaning this is coming directly from Allah, and hence the command for us having the love of the Ahlul Bayt is something that's coming directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In any case, we've seen this multiple times in different ayat as well, where the Prophets are people who don't ask for any reward for the effort that they put in guiding mankind. But before we get into the lesson itself, I just wanted to point out one point, which is, and it comes later on in the lesson as well, and that's this, that if the Holy Prophet is commanding from us that he wants nothing in reward except for the love of the Ahlul Bayt, then we need to think about this, that this mawadda and this love of the Ahlul Bayt that is being asked from us, in what ways can we exercise it? You see, we need to think about this point, that is it enough for us to simply say that we love the Ahlul Bayt, that we're the muhib of the Ahlul Bayt, but then in practice and in action we don't seem to follow their character? If you think about it, all of us when we were younger and even now have some sort of liking towards a certain thing. For many of us growing up, it might have been a certain football team that we followed or we still do follow, and we're fans or supporters of that team. But if someone was to see us, how would they identify us to be a fan of that team? Of course, the answer is that they would see certain actions from us, or they would see us, for example, if our team has been spoken bad about, we'd be defending our team, or they'd see us wearing certain jerseys from that team, or they'd see us being able to name all the players from the team or the history of that team and how many trophies it's won. All of this comes back to one point, which is that if you truly love something, then you need to have the ma'rifah of that thing, and we need to know about that thing. So this is one step that we could take as a preliminary step in this path of mawadda of the Ahlul Bayt, that whenever we get an opportunity, we should try and increase our knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt. One simple way of doing this is when the different occasions arrive. For example, a certain wiladat or a certain shahadat of a certain imam. This is a good opportunity for us to read up more about that imam, and not just read up about the imam, read up a hadith from that imam. Try and make ourselves familiar with the words of that imam, and then try and apply those teachings in the different aspects of our lives. In any case, our karate then goes on to quote another ayah which is similar, and this is from Surah Furqan, where he says, قُلْ مَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِلَّا مَنْ شَاءَ أَنْ يَتَّخِذَ إِلَى رَبِّهِ سَبِيلًا. Say, again Allah is commanding the Prophet, say, I do not ask from you any reward for this except for him who wishes to take to his Lord a way, meaning that a person who wishes to be in the path of Allah, this is the recompensation that the Holy Prophet is asking from us as the people. What's interesting, and our karate points out towards this, is that the mawadda that was asked from us, the love of the Ahlul Bayt that was asked from us from the first ayah, and now here we're being asked to follow the path of Allah, these two must be one, meaning that ita'ah and obedience of Allah must be in the mawadda and following and loving the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because if this wasn't the case, then it would be a contradiction. And he gives a nice example where you can't say, for example, that I will only study in the winter, and then in another place you say I will only study in the summer. These two things, because you said I will only study in that particular time, it means that I will not be studying in any other time. So if in the first ayah the Holy Prophet is being asked to say to us that don't ask for any reward from the people except that they should love the Ahlul Bayt, and then in another ayah he's also being said don't ask for any reward except that they come in this path of Allah. When you put two accepts together, it can only mean that both of them must mean the same thing, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Then he goes on to mention some other interesting points where he says that our intellect dictates to us that if somebody was to do any good to us, and if there's any kindness that is shown to us, then it almost becomes sort of wajib upon us to show gratitude and thankfulness in response to that good that is done upon us. And so, if the Prophet has shown kindness towards us by bringing the message of Allah and the guidance for us, then it only becomes incumbent upon us to then give back to him and thank him for this. And here the Prophet is saying that don't thank me in any way except for showing mawadda and love for the Ahlul Bayt. And he mentions as well that in today's day and age, this love, of course, can only mean showing the love towards our Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Because if from the start of Islam, Muslims were commanded through this verse to show mawadda to the family of the Holy Prophet, and in this day and age, we have nobody from the family of the Prophet, from his divinely guided Imams, except for our 12th Holy Imam, then it only makes sense for us that we should be showing our love and our gratitude to the Holy Prophet by obeying the commands of our Holy Imam, even in his ghaibah. And the intellect tells us that you cannot take guidance from anybody except one who is divinely guided, meaning somebody who is appointed by Allah, somebody who has this wilayah, and somebody who is ma'soom in delivering the message of Allah. And that is none other than our Holy Imam in this point in time. We see, for example, riwayat where we're told, Bunya al-Islam ala khams, that Islam is founded upon 5 things. And one of those things is Al-Wilayah. And this is the wilayah that we're being asked to exercise by showing love and being obedient towards the Holy Prophet's family and of course himself. And then he goes on to make this point that if Imam Ali is the one who is Qasimul Jannah wal Nar, and if prayers are not accepted where there is no acceptance of the guidance by the divinely guided, he says, and if the love of the family of the Prophet is a good deed, as we have seen, and if their visitation and seeking their assistance has been advised, it is all because of the chemistry of the love for his family members. At this point then he mentions 2 Sunni scholars, Zamakhshari and Fakhr Razi, who in their different tafasir have mentioned certain ahadith from the Holy Prophet where they say the Holy Prophet is reported to have stated, whoever dies upon the love of the Holy Ahlul Bayt dies a martyr. Or for example, in another hadith, whoever dies upon the friendship of the Ahlul Bayt dies a repentant, meaning someone who has done tawbah. In another hadith he says, whoever dies upon the love of the Ahlul Bayt dies with perfected faith. And here's where he poses the question that can love of the Ahlul Bayt be without submissiveness? Meaning, is it enough for us to just verbally with our tongue say that we love the Ahlul Bayt, and this would suffice for us to be considered in the ranks of the martyrs, the ones who are forgiven, and those whose faith is perfected? Of course, it doesn't make sense. And then he goes on to state that whoever dies with the animosity and hatred of the Ahlul Bayt will be raised on the Day of Judgment with something between his eyes written, and that will be, these are the despaired and deprived ones from the mercy of Allah. And here he's showing that on the one hand, we need to have the love of the Ahlul Bayt. On the other hand, we pray that Allah doesn't bring a day upon us that we're counted amongst those who harbor the animosity and hatred towards the Holy Ahlul Bayt. Because in another hadith he says as well that a person who dies with this animosity and hatred of the Ahlul Bayt dies as a kafir. Or for example, this person will not smell the smell of paradise. These are very scary hadith and things that we need to consider and ponder upon. That just by us verbally saying we are the muhib of the Ahlul Bayt and the lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, would these suffice? Or no? Does it require something even greater? Does it require us putting effort and learning the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt in the first level and then adhering and abiding by these teachings at the following level? And he finally ends by mentioning the Holy Prophet said that Fatimatu bid'atu minni, and anybody who hurts her has hurt me. And then interestingly he quotes the ayah which says that those who have hurt Allah and the Holy Prophet, Allah has cursed them in this world and in the akhirah, and he has prepared for them a great punishment. And when you put these two together, a person who has hurt Hazrat Fatima has hurt the Holy Prophet, and one who has hurt the Holy Prophet and Allah, according to this ayah, has no place except for the fire of hell. So we pray to Allah that He gives us the tawfiq of being from the muhibbeen of the Ahlul Bayt and the real lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, meaning those who know what the Ahlul Bayt want from us and then adhere and abide by those things. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.